Hello everyone, it's Amy and welcome back to episode 3 of Crafting for Pleasure. So we today are going to make fabric beads. And so these are some of the beads that I have made. Some of them I like to put other little seed beads on, and that just gives them a bit of sparkle. And some more than others. Some of them I just pull it in and give it little, I don't know what you even want to call that, dents or pleats or something. This one, I pulled them in and I put some beads on there. This one's got a sequin with a bead on it. And this one has just got some stitching. So if you don't have any seed beads, or if you don't have a needle that will go through the seed beads, you can just go ahead and you can still give it this texture by just using your thread. This is another one with just texture. I really loved the color of the bead, so I didn't want to take away from it by putting a bunch of seed beads on it. And so here is a little tiny one. Again, this one just has some texture. This one I put the beads all the way around instead of just here and there. This one, I kind of put a solid bit of beads here and kind of striped it with beads around the side, and then just a couple on the bottom. So, you can just play around with it. There's like no right or wrong way to do it. And it's just for fun. And they make a really nice size bead to use on your projects. So we're also going to make some pocket posies because I had someone ask about that, and it kind of goes along in the same way. So all you need is just a piece of fabric that's a circle. And I don't measure them, I just cut them. And I usually start like with a square. So I kind of want to make this more square because it's easier for me to cut a circle if I have a square. So I kind of start with a square, and then I just cut off the circle, or start in the middle of one side and cut off the corners by looking at the middle of the next side. And if you look at the next point where you want to go, that's where your scissors will kind of go. Just kind of round it over, looking at that center point of that side. And then we're going to look here. You just kind of look there. This is something that my girls learned when barrel racing. You look where you're going, and that's where your horse will go. Well, it kind of works for scissors too. So you just kind of look at where you want to end up, and then just kind of round them around, and you have a pretty decent circle. So now all of my scraps just go into a scrap bucket, and those are what we use to make the pocket posies. So I'm going to set these aside, and I've threaded a bunch of needles, hopefully enough so that you don't have to watch me thread a needle because it takes me forever, especially since I'm not exactly sure where my glasses are right now. So what we're going to do is we're going to take the circle, and we're not going to fold it over to make a nice seamed edge like on a yo-yo. We're going to sew it like a yo-yo, except we're going to leave just the raw edge hang out there. Come in about 1/4 of an inch, and you're just going to do a running stitch, which is just back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, all the way around the circle. So you're going to try and keep your seam around 1/4 of an inch all the way around. It doesn't really make that much of a difference. And when you get to the point where you're kind of running out of needle, just go ahead and pull your string through. I leave a little bit hang out the end so that we can kind of tie it together. So I'm just going to continue around. And we're going to cut some of this off when we're done. But to start with, we need that 1/4 of an inch so that we don't pull our thread up through the edge of the fabric. If you sew too close to the edge of your fabric, if your fabric loses a couple threads, your stitching will come right off the edge of the fabric. So you just want to kind of stay a little bit away. And like I said, the circle does not matter, like what size your circle is. So I'm going to come out on the same side that I went in. Like that. So now I've got the the one where I started, and I've got what's left over. And now we're going to stuff it. Now this one actually might make a pretty big bead by the looks of it. I maybe should have went a little smaller, but that's the thing. And maybe when you cut a circle, measure it. And then you'll say, a 3-inch circle kind of makes too big of a bead. A 2-inch circle, that's kind of just right. A 1-inch circle, oh, that's a little too small. You know, so you can, you know, try it and play around. I never like do it any exact way. So we're just going to take a little bit of stuffing and we're going to stuff it in here. Now, if you don't have any stuffing and you want it to be kind of tight, so this is like really, really loose. So I'm going to put just a little bit more in there. But if you don't have any stuffing, you can stuff it with your fabric scraps. I have here the other day when I was cutting my squares for my prosperity hens, I ripped all of my fabric. And then, obviously, I took off all of the threads. These are all the threads that got pulled off the edge of the fabric to go ahead. Let me see here. Just so you know what I'm talking about. So I ripped a 4-inch strip, the full length of my fabric, and then I ripped 4-inch pieces, so I had a 4x4 square to make the prosperity hens. So, but when you do that, you get all these threads that kind of stick out, and you want to pull those all off, and then you get this nice little edge, and it stops. It gets to the point where it stops fraying. So, so you just pull those off like that, and used to throw them away. Well, now I use them for stuffing. I use them for the Pocket Posies. But so that's where this came from. And this also makes really good stuffing. So if you don't have any stuffing, use some threads, some fabric, anything that you have leftovers of. Use those for your stuffing. I'm going to put just a touch more in this one. And then I'm going to pull both of these. Okay, and I think it needs still just a little bit more stuffing. It's still a little bit too soft. It's going to be soft to start with, and then as you start sewing it together and putting those stitches through it, that makes it more solid. So I've got both ends of my string here. I'm just going to keep tucking that in and pull it up tight, and be careful not to snap your thread. I have been so heavy-handed lately, I can't tell you how many times I broke my thread. And I thought, well, at first I thought it was just, so I'm going to pull that tight and kind of hold on to it. And then I'm going to wrap, when you tie a knot, you go around the other thread. My hand's in the way, sorry about that. But if you do it twice, you go around twice instead of once. Now I need to put this all back together again. If you go around twice instead of once, so I went around and around, just like you're tying a knot, but I did it twice. Then when you get to where you tighten it, it kind of holds, almost like you've actually put both of the, you know, when you tie a knot, you tie it once and then you tie it again. If you wrap it twice, it's like tying it twice. It kind of holds. And then you do still need to tie it again, but it helps it not to release as fast. It just kind of holds it. So I'm going to go around one more time to make sure that I've got that nice and tight. And this can be a little bit fiddly, unless you got somebody to say, hey, come here and put your finger on there. I can remember Mom used to do that all the time when I was a kid. Now I know why. It's easier. It's faster. So there we go. So now we've got this all nice and tight, or this nice and tight. And so what I'm going to do, and you want to be very careful here. Make sure you know where your thread is. And I'm going to take my scissors and see how that's sticking out like that. I'm going to cut a bit of that off. to kind of get it out of my way. Now it's not quite sticking out as much. And now, before we do anything else, because we will cut it a little bit further, I'm going to cut off this extra, the extra piece of thread that we left on there to tie. I'm going to cut that off and get it out of my way, if I can. I am all fingers and thumbs today. It happens. Alrighty, so now we're going to take what we have left of our thread, and I start with about a yard, 3 feet, a meter of thread when I start, because you need to go around, but then you need to also, what we're going to do now is, here we are, coming out right here. I'm going to kind of like do a back stitch. I'm going to come a ways away from where I'm coming out here. I'm going to come over here and go back towards that spot right there. Just right about where my stitching was for where I went around, and then give it a pull. And then I'm going to kind of come back towards it, back towards where I just came out, and give it a pull. And now I'm going to go a little further than that. And we're just going to keep just underneath where we had sewn before. We're just going to keep, basically it's back stitching. Oh. And that is going to kind of pull it all towards the center. This is not my idea on how to make these beads. I saw someone else do it, and I don't know who. And I thought, well, that looks like fun, and it really is. So now I like to use kind of like a silky kind of material, and that works really good. And you want to like pull it and like kind of try and hold it. I kind of let it all loosen up a bit. And, you know, use a thread that kind of matches your fabric a little bit. I wanted to use a contrasting color so that you could kind of see what I was doing, because it's so small, but if the thread had been the same color, you wouldn't be able to see it all. So, and then every so often, because I've been so heavy-handed, I'm going to go through, and then I'm going to put a little knot. Just one knot is good. And when I've made it all the way around, and see, like, look how flat that is now and everything. That's okay, because we're going to round it up later. But we'll kind of round it up to look at it so we can see what we've got here. So now I've made it all the way around. Sometimes I'll do it once, sometimes I do it twice. It just depends on what I feel like. So I'm going to stop right there. And again, we've got some more little fuzzies sticking out there. So I'm going to kind of trim those down now. And again, we went around and around. We did not go over the top. So that way, and make sure you keep your thread out of the way so you don't accidentally cut it. We can kind of trim this down because we kind of want to flatten that out a little bit. We don't want a big bump sticking out there. But by going all the way around it, we can cut off that little bit of hairy fabric that's still sticking out there and not worry about cutting our thread. Be very careful to kind of know where your thread's at. Now that we've done that, now I'm going to come to the other side. My thread's coming out this side right here. I'm going to go to the other side of that where we had sewn it. Take just a small stitch and pull it tight. Like that. So I'm going to pull it in a bit. Now I'm here, and I'm going to come over to the other side. Take a little stitch. Whoops. And give it a pull. Oh, we're going to keep our fingers crossed that I'm able to thread this needle in less than 20 minutes. Let's see how we're doing here. Oh, not easy without my magnifying glasses, that's for sure. They say you're not supposed to lick your thread. I like to pinch my thread between my fingers. There's the thread, I can see it. Then find the eye of my needle and take the needle to the thread. Got it. Okay, so I'm going to give that a pull. And then just kind of move over just a touch instead of going back and forth and back and forth. And then just go, we're continuing to go across and moving just a little bit, so we're not just going to the same spot exactly. This now also, like we could see a little white there. By doing this, that's going to pull some of that fabric over top of the white stitching that I did just a few minutes ago to help hide it. But it's also going to make this nice and solid, and it's going to kind of get rid of that lump that is created when all that fabric gets pulled together when you start. So just continue till you think it's good. And if you think that your bead is way too puffy, you can move out just a little bit. Like here's our center. Instead of going right next to it, we could come out a little bit and take a stitch and then pull it across, because that way we are making the bead actually smaller by coming out a little bit and then pulling it across. That's going to make our bead a little smaller. If we think it's a little too big, or we don't have enough stuffing in there and it's a little too puffy, that will help shrink your bead a little bit. And I have to remember that when I go around to start with and then I go across at the end, because I tend to a lot of times, like I was just kind of, instead of going across to the other side, I was just kind of going right next to it. I don't want to go around anymore. I've already done that. I want to go across because I'm trying to kind of cover this all up and shrink up my bead just a touch. So, and you do that by going from one side to the other. And then move it just a little bit and put it in. And then go from one side to the other. And so there we go. Now that's how you make your bead. So I'm going to tie a knot. Just go through the fabric. Oh, that's not good. So we're going to hope that this stays together. We're going to hope that it's been backstitched enough and it doesn't go anywhere, because that's not a good thing that I broke my thread. I'll put a knot on my thread. I'm going to go through it a couple of times. Oops, I have a bunch of thread hanging off the end of my knot. I'm going to cut off that one where I broke it. Okay, pull that through. Kind of go right through there where it, if I can hold this all together a little bit, then that thread's not going to come out even though it broke, because there's no pressure on it to come out. If you just stopped right then the pressure of the bead wanting to pull out might loosen that thread. So I'm just going to go through here. And that's the other thing. If you put a knot, see, my thread is very, I don't know what it's doing. It's wanting to knot up a lot. I'm going to hold it out here so that hopefully I can get it to, my thread is splitting. That's what it is. This piece is thinner and there's some backing up right there. I'm not sure why that's happening, but it is. So I'm going to just kind of give it a pull. There we go. I was going through the knot, or through a loop, so hopefully that knot's going to be strong enough. So there we go. Now what I like to do is I just kind of do like this, and that kind of makes them a little bit round. There we go. Got a lot of white going on there. So you could cover it up even if you don't have, if you're not going to put beads on it or whatever. This is just a permanent marker that does not work, but you could just go in there and do that. Nobody's going to see that. Nobody's going to notice the difference. I don't know if I have another one that's this color or not. We'll just do a little bit of purple. So we've got that quite a bit of white, so we can just, this is a permanent marker, so it's not going to come up on your project. And there we go. Now there's no more white. And that just, you know, those little things help you feel better about what you're creating. Like if you keep, as you're sewing the beads on or whatever, and you keep seeing that bit of white and you're like, oh man, well, you know, that way it gets rid of it. So after you do that, let me put this one over here. Now this is when you can leave it just like this if you want to. Or, you know, you have your beads and you say, but I've got that spot right there. You can take a bead cap and put it on each side, and that will kind of cover that up a little bit. When I use them for my prosperity hens, I always put that little bit to the bottom. So, and you see the sides more and the top more than you see that piece right there. So, but it's still, it looks good. And so then you can leave it just like that. You can put stitches in it. Or you can, I don't want to, let me use this one for just a second. This is doubled over and I don't want it to be doubled because it's so short. But the one that I just pulled out right here, that's my bead needle. And I would not be able to, 99% sure I would not be able to get that one rethreaded if I had to put more thread on it. So I'm just going to put this through here. With a regular needle is how I make my little dents. So all you do is you just come out anywhere. I went in through there to hide my knot in that bunch there, and then just came out right there, and just go right back down right next to it, and just come out anywhere. You don't even have to look. And then what you do is you just give it a little bit of a pull, and see it, put that little dent there. And so then you're going to put your finger on that just to kind of hold it so that the thread doesn't suck back through. And right here's where we came out. So we're just going to go right next to that and just come out anywhere. Give it a little bit of a pull. Now this one is going to hold the one that you first started with. So now you're going to put your finger on that one and hold it there. And then you're going to just go from here, a little bit next to that, and come out somewhere else. Give it a pull. Put your finger on it, go there, come out anywhere. And so you just keep doing that until you have as many little divots in your bead as you want to have. So now I have to rethread it. We're going to see if that's going to be possible. Everybody threads their needles different ways. It's all just about what works for you. And I really should, this thread is a little bit frayed at the end, so it needs to be cut. That is one big thing about threading a needle, is if your thread is not a nice fresh cut, you may have a really hard time threading it because it's kind of frayed out a little bit and it doesn't want to go through that hole. So there we go. So I'll give that one a pull. We'll just do a couple more before we knot it off. So now we're there. Give that one a pull. And I'll put one right here. And then I like to end at that bottom spot. Just gonna go through my loop, make a knot. Because I've got a little bit more thread left here, just gonna kind of maybe go this way. Just kind of pull it together just a little bit more. And these little divots that you put in here, they also help to make the bead even tighter. The more things that you stitch onto it, the more that you pull it in, the tighter it gets. Okay, luckily I was just going through that one to put the knot in. So there we go. Now we've got a bead with the divots. And we can just leave it just like that. That's actually a pretty nice looking bead. I like that. I'm trying to think if I really want to put beads on it now. I really kind of like the way it looks. I like the flower that it's got right there. And I think I'm going to leave that one. I don't think I want to put beads on it. I'm going to keep that one just like that. So I've got another one here that we can put beads on. I like this one the way it looks too. Well, this green one doesn't have any. I guess we'll put them on the green one because those ones I like without beads. So then you're going to have a bead needle. Any needle that always test to make sure that you can put your needle with the thread through your beads and that it will come out. So this one is actually a beading needle because my seed beads are really, really small. So you're just going to, and you can do it like you can just get one bead. You can get a specific color bead. Before I do anything, I'm going to find, that's my starting spot where where we pulled it all together. So I'm going to go there. And again, a color that matches what you're doing would be nicer. You know for sure it won't show, but I'm put one bead on here. I'm going to go right back to that thread and just come out anywhere. And that's the thing. Now, you can pull these super tight to make more dents to put the beads into a dent, or you can just put them on there and let them sit more towards the outside edge. And if you just go ahead and put more beads on your needle, look at about how long that is. That's about 1/2 inch. So my stitch comes out right here. I want to go over about 1/2 inch unless you want them to stick up. So I'm just going to go like that. Just go through anywhere. Carefully pull it through. Don't let your thread get all knotted up or wound up. And so there we go. Now, because this is where we had come out and that's where we came out the other side, our beads lay nice and flat on our fabric bead right there. I'll show you that again. We're coming out here. And so you put as many beads on your needle as you want. So again, that's about 1/2 inch. So I'm going to say, okay, I don't want it to be right next to that. So I'm going to go this way. So I'm going to say, I want it to come out right about there. So that's where I'm going to put my needle in here's my thread. And there's my needle. That's about my 1/2 inch right there. So I'm going to go through there and just come out wherever. I don't want to come out right on top of that. So I'm going to kind of come back a little bit and kind of move it a little bit. There we go. We'll come out right there. Watch your thread so it doesn't get all tangled up. And there we go. They get pulled right up on there. And so you can do as many of those as you want to. And like I said, you can do long ones. You can do short ones. My thread's coming out there. I'm going to do like this and put just a single bead because there's not a lot of room right there. I'm going to put just like a single bead or 2 beads right there. That's way too many. And go, as you start to get, your bead starts to get full, then you might want to look as to which angle you want to go and where you want your thread to come out, because you want to make sure you're not coming out right on top of someplace else. And if you've got a great big bald spot, you may want to cover that up. So I think I'm going to put one more right here. Well, no, I'm just going to take this one that way. Yeah. And if I've come out right here and I don't want to put a bead there, then just go very close to that and just go right back through and look, I want one more right here. No, not there. I want to go. And bead needles, because they bend, like this is a little bit bent, they're sometimes a little harder to get them to come out exactly where you want them to. I'm going to go here and I'm going to find my kind of bottom spot because hopefully you saw that. We're going to call that good. So now we've got beads all the way around that. We're just going to knot this off. And so long as you don't break it when you knot it, like I did the last one. do that. I like to do like a double knot. Do it once and then do it again. Okay. Now, I don't like to cut right next to my knot, so I'm just going to go right back in there and just come out anywhere. And this does not matter because now we're going to cut it. And I've got this all tangled up right here. There. So we're going to, and then what I do is you just go through to the other side, give it just a little bit of a pull, and then cut it right close to the fabric. Don't cut your fabric. And when you let go and give it a pinch, then the string will go back down inside the bead. And so there we go. We have a fabric bead. And you can make them with the beads. You can make them without the beads. You can do it however you want to. And so those work really well to put on your prosperity hens. So I have these. And what do I want for my third? I think I'll go with this one. And it doesn't matter. They can twist back and forth. So, and so I have these tassels. And so what I use is I use kind of a long needle that my embroidery floss will go through. So I've got some blue. It's actually like a crochet thread. So, but before I start, I make sure that my needle will go through what I want it to go through. So this has got a little tiny hole in it, and it does go all the way through to the bottom. So I always try it just to make sure, because sometimes there's glue and stuff in there that won't let you go through. So my needle does fit through here, but before I put the needle on, Prosperity Hens usually have a bell on the bottom. So I got these bells, and I'm just going to, I have doubled my thread and knotted it, so I'm going to go around the bell and then just go through that where the knot is, and that way that holds on to that. Now I'm going to kind of find the center of my tassel. These tassels just got cut off from something. That's why they look like that. And I got them at a secondhand store. So I'm just going to find the spot. There we go. There, my needle's going through. And just pull that up like that. And kind of bury the bell in the tassel, just because I think it looks kind of cute. They're supposed to have bells, and that's a pretty bell, but I like the tassel. So there we go. Now, you can choose to either cut those little hairs off or leave them. I think that today I will just leave it. And then I use a long needle so that I can just come right up through. I just kind of separate the two pieces of fabric at the point and go up between them. Oh, but before we do that, we want to have, let's see here. Do I want a bead on top of this? Yeah, let's put a couple beads. So I've got some, these are just acrylic beads, and there's nothing wrong with using acrylic. Acrylic is actually very nice so that things aren't too heavy. Just have to figure out which side opens. Oh, it has little locks on here. So I'm going to put a bead between here and here. So I think that I will use a pink one. This is pretty. Let's go with silver and gold and pink. Silver and gold and pink. Yep, we'll do that. Set those aside. Now the question will be, will my needle and my thread go through these? Because I have not tried it here. Put the silver one. Oh, you know what? Things look better in threes. So I think I'm going to do silver, pink, silver. And without my glasses, it may take me a minute to find the holes. There we go. Okay. There we go. And now, with the beads on there, I don't like the looks of that, so I am going to Give that a little nip. And it wouldn't hurt to put just a touch of glue on there, just for the heck of it. This is just clear tacky glue. There we go. All right, now we'll go through our bird, go through the point, and I pretty much like to come up in the middle at the top, but if you want your bird to sit a little more like this or whatever, you can, wherever you come out with your needle, you know, either your bird will sit straight if you go right straight up. If you go here, your bird on the thread will point down. If you go over to this side, your bird on the thread will point up. But I like to go through the middle. That's how I've always seen them. So hold your points after you've got your thread through there, just to kind of hold them in place so they don't get sucked up into the bird. And then just kind of put that right down to about there. Alrighty, and then now I think I'm going to put these back over here. So we've got our bird, and we want to put these beads on here, but I was thinking of a bead and then one of those fabric beads and then a regular bead. So let's go with, since we did the silver and pink, let's just do the pinks again. So let's do a pink one. And then we're going to do this one. And I like to come up from the bottom and then kind of watch where you're coming out at. Because I want it to be kind of straight. And I want it to be in the middle. That looks pretty good. And if you get to the point where it's really hard to pull, you can always use a pair of pliers. They're very helpful to do that, and there's nothing wrong with using them. So let's go with pink, and then that one, and then the pink one, and then we're going to put our next 10. It doesn't matter which way they're facing. I like when I hang them on my door for them to face opposite ways, one way and then the other, and then back again. But when you sew them together, it doesn't matter because you can twist them any way you want to. I'm going to come up between the fabric. I like to just kind of make sure, see, I don't want a big blue stripe there, and that's where my needle came out, so I don't want that to happen. And I want it over just a little bit more towards the center. Hold my point down. And pull that through. So now we've got our tassel and these beads and this hen, these beads. Now I can see that my thread, because it's doubled, it's bunching up a little bit here. Like one has been pulled harder than the other. I don't want that to happen. So if you can see, I don't know how well you can see, but right here, it's a little bit, one of them is, it's very hard to see, longer than the other. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try pulling on this one. That didn't do much, so try pulling on this one. Nope, not that one. There we go. I've got it even. I've pulled that other pink bead right up into the hen, so we need to move that hen up a little bit. And I always kind of make sure that when I'm all the way to the end, to lay it out and say, okay, like see, we pulled this silver one up into the bird. It's okay to have a little extra string between them, but you definitely don't want your beads to be inside of your hem. So leave a little bit of, you can leave a little bit of a gap. And do the last one. So I like this blue one. I think I'm going to use that blue one. So now we're going to go, I like silver with blue, so I'm going to go silver, and then the blue one, again putting the bottom at the bottom, or the part that we sewed at the bottom, kind of making sure that that looks like it's how you would want it, because sometimes it looks really crooked. And this is probably where your strings get a little off because everything is kind of catching it. So I want to make sure that yeah, there we go. Get that straightened up. And then another silver one. And our last hen. I love this frayed fabric. I think it looks so cool. I mean, I really liked them as felt. That's really fun too, having the two colors, but the fray on these I just really like. I'm going to go between the point. More in the middle. There we go. Hold this down. There. Okay, and then we just need kind of a topper. So for the top, we'll do one of these pretty pink ones. No, we're going to do a silver one. No, we're going to do one of these that's kind of multicolored. And then the pretty one, and then another one of these. And there we go. Now we have, starting with our bottom with our bell, and then we've got some beads there. Again, this is when we're going to check it. Make sure that, and you can always too, you could put just a touch of glue on that point to keep it together so this bead doesn't get up in there. You could also put a little stitch, like when you're all done, but you do want to make sure that you've got that room there for everything. Alrighty. So there we go. We've got our bell, and then we've got our green chicken, and our maroon one, and our blue one with our own homemade beads. And so then at the top, I like to just loop it over like this, make a loop, and then take the loop and tie it around itself, around the two strings that are coming out. And make it look harder than it actually is. All right, you got the two strings that are coming out, then you made a loop, so now you've got your strings there. Take that loop and go around, come back through. We're going to tie a knot right there, and as you're pulling your knot, slide that down towards your beads, because you want that to be right around where your beads are right there. Okay, and then give it a really good pull once you're there, and chop that off. So there we go. There are our own homemade beads, and you can do like a little bead, a big bead, a little bead. They don't have to be this small, or you can just do them all the same size, but still just use all of your own homemade beads on here. You don't have to put any other kind of bead. So I like kind of catches a little bit of the sparkle, but if I had put some with some seed beads on it, that would catch the sparkle too. So that's how you make your own homemade fabric beads. And I like our little chicks and hen here. I'm going to hang them right on my tripod. That turned out really cute. Okay, now I'm going to show you how to do these. These are really simple also. We're getting close on time. So I do have a needle and thread. Again, you're going to want a nice, this is about a yard of thread. And I didn't really need to do that, but okay, so what you're going to do is just take your scraps. And I'm going to save those. They're good for stuffing, but they're not the best for this. There's some scrap threads. There's some scrap embroidery floss, some yarn. I'm going to stick this in here. And you're just going to take them and kind of wad them up so you can see the different bits and pieces. Now I'm going to probably need to really hurry because I think if this goes over an hour, at least it used to, if I go over an hour, I won't be able to upload it. That would be really bad. Like then you have to have like programs and stuff to upload it. And like I said, I don't do that. So, okay. All right. So you just wad it all up together. And you just kind of want to make sure you've got little bits here and there showing of different colors, but you can also move it around after you start stitching it. And then you've got a knot in your thread and you're just going to sew through. And then you're going to come next to it, a few, half inch or so, go over and sew through and come over here. So all you're doing is you're just going back and forth different areas. Don't drop your needle and make a mess like I just did because I'm not sure exactly what the heck is going on here. There we go. We're just going to go through like that and just keep kind of making it, keeping it a little bit round. So I'm going to come over here and just kind of pull these together and maybe hold that down by going over top of it. And I just don't know what my problem is right now, but my threads are getting so knotted and they're all different types of threads. Yeah, this thread now has a knot in it. Not a good thing. And I don't know. Oh, I don't know if that just happened when I lost my needle. Not gonna go that way. All right. All right, now we're gonna wrap it around just a little bit, not too far. Hopefully I'm gonna be able to keep pulling this through without breaking it. Fingers crossed. All right, so come around a little bit and then go back through the other way. And catch something, I'm catching this bit of fabric as you do that. Okay, so I'm gonna move maybe a half an inch this way, go through here, and go like that. Now this is really sticking up, so I'm gonna come over to here, and I'm gonna go through there. And I want this to be held down, so I'm gonna go over top of that. And I'm gonna hold that down by going into there. And I'm gonna push this green piece down and go over top of it and then go into this bit. Now, you don't wanna catch every last little bit. You want little bits to be sticking out, but you don't want them sticking out this far. So I'm gonna take that and fold it in a little bit and go through it. And then you can just wrap a little bit here or there, like this. You can wrap around it and come back up through it. Wrap around it this way. And then go down through it. Until you kind of get your ball shape. Okay, and then you're going to, I do it while I still have the needle on there, kind of give it a bit of a roll. You can't do it a lot because you'll mess up your thread, but you just kind of want to get it squished together to see, is there any spot? It looks really loose like right here. So I'm just going to go through both of those and then point it down, go through the other side. That will hold those a little bit better, because you want them to be solid. If somebody's going to put it in their purse or in their pocket or something, you don't want them to fall apart. So, but we've gone through this a lot. Little bits may come off here or there because it's fabric scraps, but you don't want it to fall apart. So now we've got it just like we want it. So we're just going to go ahead, go through to make a loop, and then go through the loop to make a knot. Then I want to go through somewhere else and make a loop, go through the loop to make a knot, give it a pull. Make sure that I don't have anything now that I don't like the looks of. This is kind of sticking up a little bit right here. I like the looks of that, so I'm not going to put that down. And I'm going to go through to the other side because I had just made a knot. So I always like to go through if I can and cut that off. And there we go. Give it a roll now that it's not on the needle. This is our pocket posy. And see, that one and this one are different sizes. And this one is mostly, I think, yarn. This one is mostly laces. So it just depends on whatever you're working on at the time. This one is all cotton fabric. This is what I had left when I was making the birds. This would actually have looked cute. Look at that. Look at how well that matches. So actually I have two of these. I'll have to find the other one. I think it's in one of my other cups. Maybe I will go ahead and put this with these because that would be cute. So that is how you make a pocket posy. And I just have this little jar, made this little pin cushion. These are just pins. And it fit on top of this jar. So now I sit it on top so all my bits don't fall out. And see all the little bits of thread that I had thrown over there? I'm going to pick those up and just throw them in my jar. Even like this one, I'm not going to take it off because I leave it on my needle until I use it the next time so I don't lose the needle. But when I take that off, then it'll wind up going in there also. So there we go. We have pocket posies. We have our own beads. And we used our beads to make our prosperity hens. And I think that they look really cute. And I really like the fabric beads with the prosperity hens. It makes them look even more handmade. So thank you very much for stopping by. I really do appreciate each and every one of you. And I hope that you all have an outstanding day. Bye-bye.